Barack Obama or Tammy Duckworth how she can create jobs? Yes or no?
Yes.
We all say of course, but yet our government policy doesn't do that. Our government takes more money away from her. Our government every week and month puts one more regulation, one more piece of paperwork on her. So don't just say of course, because a lot of people in Washington don't do of course. They make it more difficult. That's wrong, and that's, look, I think if historically this has been the most entrepreneurial, energetic, innovative country in the history of the planet. And we're not right now. Not because we as a people aren't as entrepreneurial, innovative, or energetic as we used to be. No, our government is sitting on us. And it's not hard. Go.
I came today because I've been hearing in the Democratic National Convention speeches and Obama's latest 2-minute ad and other claims that Clinton presidency created 23 million jobs. And what bothers me is it's not true, and I'm worried that government and politicians don't understand what creates jobs. In the book called The Clinton Economic Boom, this is the Clinton presidency, talks about what created the jobs during the Clinton presidency, things that I lived through. For example, the Y2K bug problem fix that created software and hardware sales that didn't exist prior to that time. The Mosaic browser, okay, which got the dot-com industry going, which created jobs. And think about the dot-com industry. Every time you did that, you leveraged additional jobs because you did. Lawyers who had to set up contracts, accountants who had to do the accounting, and resources people. So Clinton's getting credit for creating jobs, okay? And the third thing that the book talks about that created jobs was the telecom deregulation where we broke up the baby belt, okay? And now internet service providers could come to you in your home and sell you directly. That deregulation added $150 billion worth of jobs to the economy. So $550 billion worth of jobs, plus all the leverage jobs that came from the multiplier effect, some of which are said to be 6.7 times as many, created those jobs. Why do they get credit for it, and why do they say those policies are going to help our economy?
Again, because that's a long, deep-seated answer to that question. Because look, last year, President Obama called a joint session of Congress. He pulled the House and the Senate together, not for a State of the Union, but just he wanted to present another jobs plan to us. And if you recall, I decided not to go to that joint session of Congress. I came home. You know what I did? I sat 110 businessmen and women down. And I said, you tell me. I'm just a freshman in Congress. You're smarter than me. These were businessmen and women. How do we create jobs in this country? And over the course of an hour and a half, they all told me 3 things. I put those 3 things in a letter that I sent to President Obama. Haven't heard back from him. That was over a year ago. The 3 things they told me were, read my lips, permanent tax relief. Don't cut or raise my taxes a year or 6 months at a time. That's no way to run a business as we face tax rates expiring at the end of this year. And even the Republicans have voted to extend them all for everybody by another year. Obama says if you're 200 above, I'm not going to extend them. I wish Republicans would extend them permanently. So small business owners said, if you want me creating jobs, permanent tax relief, tell me what my tax rate is, and then get out of my hair. Don't change it every year. The second thing they asked for, please stop regulating me to death. Whether it's the EPA or OSHA or the FDA or Obamacare or Dodd-Frank, quit piling regulations on my head. You're making it too expensive for me to hire people and grow. I have to, and we all know the stories, right? Businesses who literally now have to hire people solely to deal with complying with new government regulations. How much sense does that make? The third thing small business owners said was, please, Washington, do something about all of your debt. Because these guys are smart. they know, like President Obama and Tammy Duckworth don't know, you could take 100% of what every millionaire and billionaire in this country makes, just take 100% of their money, and you won't do a thing to the deficit or the debt. You won't do a thing. Might make you feel really good, but you won't do a thing to our debt. Businessmen and women know that if government's going to try to tax their way out of the debt, where are they going? They're raising everybody's taxes, and that's them. Now, why don't we listen to the people out here who create jobs? How am I going to create jobs? Why do people in Washington think they're so smart? Like they create jobs? No. Their job is to just sort of get out of the way and let us do our thing. I agree with the premise of your question. It always bothers me when any president says, I created this many jobs, or I will create this many jobs. No. If I were ever running for president, I'd say, I want to cut your taxes, I'm going to get rid of regulations, and then I think everybody out there is going to create jobs.
And in that same regard, the jobs growth during that time period paid more than our government spending, which was escalated from previous years at the time, paid for it without any budget, need for any budget deficit. So Romney's point about how you were creating jobs by growing the economy seems to be missed by a lot of people too that don't understand that.
Well, you're right. Republicans tend to run away from revenue, right? The media is always jumping us on revenue. It's not just government spending, Congressman, it's revenue. Well, I agree. I want to raise revenue. I guess I have a different idea of how revenue's raised. Historically, I believe that when we cut taxes and we try to simplify the tax code, we grow the economy, we create more taxpayers, and voila, you've got more money, revenue, going into government. It's really pretty simple, I think. It's really pretty simple. The problem is we got a guy in the White House who just has a very different philosophy. Most of the Democratic Party believes that. Tammy Duckworth absolutely believes that. That's kind of what this election's about. How are we going to get this great, good, entrepreneurial country up off their back growing? Right now they're tied down. We're tied up. Tied down, tied up. We're on our backs, tied down. Regulations, taxes are not letting all of us up, our small businessmen and women, doing their thing. That's why we're where we're at. What else, guys? Thoughts, issues, questions? In the back.
I had 3 people raise an objection to you today that I've never heard before. The objection was that you spend too much time campaigning, you're not doing a job in Washington. What percentage of votes have you voted on versus when you've been absent when there's a vote? What's your voting record as a percentage?
Were they criticizing me or Congress in general?
They were specifically talking about you.
Oh boy, I don't know my exact number, but I mean I think I'm right up there,
97, 98%?
Oh yeah, I'll have my staff check, but I think most members of Congress are somewhere between 197 or so percent or whatever, so that's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the numbers, you know, 20 years ago I was doing consulting for the payroll department at McDonald's, and I know for a fact that every September 1st, plus or minus 2 weeks, 200,000 high school kids who were working part-time for McDonald's quit and go off to college, and McDonald's hires nationwide another 200,000 kids to replace them. They're high school kids. That alone generates 200,000 jobs, and that's not including Burger King and Wendy's and all the other fast food restaurants. That's McDonald's corporate only, not even the franchises are in that number.
Again, when you look inside the numbers for this past September, there was a huge number of part-time jobs created. People working part-time who chose to or couldn't find full-time. Huge.
And 10,000 government jobs.
Yeah, now look, I'll say this. You know my philosophy. I generally believe the less we're doing in Washington, the better, because to me that means the country is, all the rest of us are dictating things. So it doesn't bother me if we're not in session in Washington a lot. It bothers me that we're not there now. I think we should be in session now, because we have a lot of bad stuff hitting us at the end of the year. And right now, all of this bad stuff, like all these tax rates that are due to expire, sequestration, all of this stuff is going to be dealt with in a lame duck session. And very little good comes out of a lame duck session.
Exactly.
It's not my choice down here. I agree. I think we should be there now dealing with this stuff. Yes, sir.
So I know you have a lot of supporters here. I'm kind of here on behalf of another organization. That's the National Religious Campaign Against Torture.
Against torture.
Yes.
The National
Yes.
Religious Campaign Against Torture.
So I have hopefully what is an easy question for you. How would you support the torture of a suspected terrorist?
Would I support the torture of a suspected terrorist?
During an interrogation?
Well, it's fairly broad, but again, I won't. Give me a second to think, but I won't run away. I won't run away from it. I promise you, I won't.
Okay.
So let me start out, and then I'll answer it.
The National Religious Campaign Against Torture in our church.
Okay.
Where is it headquartered? Washington, D.C.
Okay.
It's a decent size. You can look us up on there.
Okay. I'll get info, and you and I can exchange cards.
Sure.
I believe profoundly that we are in a war on terror. We are in a war against radical Islamic extremists who want to kill Americans and destroy our way of life. Okay, and I'm building up to my answer.
Sure, take your time.
I want my government protecting us against this danger and defeating this enemy. So generally, I want to give my government great leeway in the tools they have to defeat and kill this enemy. I try to draw a line between terrorists and anybody who's an American citizen. And my voting record reflects this. I've voted against a number of bills that have made it easier for our government to breach and step on American citizens' liberties in the pursuit of defeating this terror. And that we always got to be careful on and can't let happen. But when it comes to defeating and killing an enemy, and they're not American citizens, I'll tell you, I want to do whatever we can to save Americans. And if engaging in, and if you've got specifics, but in engaging in any tool to get answers from any evil people that can save Americans' lives, absolutely. I will give my government the ability to do that. We're at war.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Fire away.
You made a really great point with protecting American citizens.
Yes.
So, what is your stance on the National Defense Authorization Act?
I voted against it because of that.
Because of that?
Absolutely. Because of those. They asked me how I voted on the National Defense Reauthorization Act, and I voted against it because of that very issue. It gave our government, and you know quite well, certain powers that absolutely gave them the ability to step on and violate the due process of Muslim American citizens, Christian American, you name it. And that we can't let our government do.
Would you support any, or have you supported any type of follow-up to kind of changing that so that it doesn't continue like that?
Yeah, I think, Justin, and maybe you don't know, I think in the second National Defense Authorization Act, those two sections were changed. Yeah. Yes. And I'm fairly certain then I voted for it. And I worked with a group of legislators to change those two sections. Because that was really the only objection I had to the bill.
Thank you.
And guys, can I be... To me, the line is, you're an American citizen. You're born with,